everyone, welcome to my first lesson, and today we're going to look at fractions. Before we get into numbers and equations, it's good for us to have a clear understanding on what fraction is all about. Okay, so what is a fraction? I would define fraction as part of a unit or a whole. For example, if you have a pizza, right? A slice of pizza is part of a whole pizza. So that slice is a fraction of a whole pizza. Or a fraction can also be defined as part of a total. Let's say you have a bag of oranges and you pick out 3 oranges from that bag. That 3 oranges is fraction of the total number of oranges in that bag. In both cases, we have to understand that a fraction is always less than a whole or less than the total. Okay. So to understand this better, let's take a look again at the pizza example. Okay, we have a whole pizza here. It's been sliced to 8 pieces, 8 equal pieces, and let's say we take out 2 pieces, right? So you can see that this is a fraction of the pizza, right? You have taken out 2 pieces, and these 2 pieces are a fraction of the whole pizza. But let us also look at the remainder. It's no longer a whole. It's no longer a whole pizza. So this is also a fraction of the pizza, right? So how do we get back a whole pizza, right? What we do is we put this piece, the smaller fraction, back to the larger fraction, right? When you do that, you get back the whole pizza, right? You take this 2 pizza, put it back, the smaller fraction goes into the larger fraction, and you get back the whole pizza. So in summary, you have the fraction that you took out, the smaller fraction, and the balance is the remainder, is the larger fraction. And when you add them together, the larger fraction to the fraction that you took out, the smaller fraction, you get back a whole pizza, right? So these are the basic principles of fraction. Next, now that we have a good understanding on fractions, we'll go to the next part of the lesson, which is how do we write fractions. Okay, writing fractions. We write fractions like this. You have a number on top. Let's say 1. Sorry. 1, and you put a line under it, and then there's another number below it. We pronounce it like this: 1/4, or quarter in this case. Okay, so the number on the top, right, is called a numerator. And the number at the bottom is called a denominator. Okay, the way I remember it is n over d, right? I think of the name ND, right? ND, right? That's how I remember which number is the numerator and which number is the denominator, right? Let's look at another fraction. Let's say 3/8, and we'll use the same pizza example, right? 3 over 8. Let us look at the denominator first, 8. What that number indicates is actually it describes the whole pizza. It gives you information, more information about the whole pizza. In other words, it's saying that the whole pizza is divided to 8 equal pieces. That's what the denominator describes, right? So from that number we have more information on the whole, right? It's not just describing the whole, it tells us how many pieces or how many units or the total comprise of, right? And then we look at the number on the top, the numerator, 3. So basically the numerator, it describes the fraction. It tells you out of the 8 pieces how many numbers we are focused on, right? So if I take a red color and 3 over 8, let's say I shade this 3 pieces. 1, 2, 3. 3 pieces, right? So this shaded area demarcates 3 over 8, right? So that's what the from looking at a fraction, it gives us this information. The number at the bottom, the denominator, describes or gives more information on the whole. It tells you the whole is divided to how many pieces, or out of a total, how many units there are in the total. And the number on the top, numerator, it describes the fraction or the parts of the whole that we are focused on, or how many units of the total that we are focused on to describe the fraction, right? In the next section, we'll see how we can graphically show or represent fractions. Okay, drawing fractions. When we want to graphically show fractions, sometimes we use circles, but unless you have a compass, it's quite difficult to draw circles freehand or just using a ruler. So I normally prefer to show fractions graphically using rectangles. But if we were to use circles, let's say we're using a compass to draw a circle. Next is we have to divide them to equal number of pieces. If we are dividing to an even number of pieces, it's not too bad. Let's see, I'll show you. Let's say we're dividing this first circle here to 4 equal slices. Right. Okay, and another horizontal line. Okay, so we have divided that to 4 almost looks like equal slices. But let's say we have to divide the circle into an odd number of slices, let's say 5. That's going to be a bit difficult unless you have a protractor, and you measure the angles and all that, or not. It's going to be difficult. Let me try that. Okay, this is my first line. Okay, that's the first piece. Second piece, third piece, and fourth and fifth piece. As you can see, the slices are not equal. So it's easier if you use a rectangle to graphically represent fractions. So if the problem or the question does not specify what shape to use, I would rather use a rectangle to show the fractions. Okay, so let's look at this rectangle over here. I'm going to show 1 over 4, right? Okay, so first I'll draw my lines. first line, my second line, my third line. Okay, so okay, let me just adjust this here a little bit. All right, okay, so I've got a rectangle. I've divided them to 4 equal parts, and I'm going to show quarter, 1/4. So I shade one of it. Right? Okay, so the key here is to divide them to 4 equal parts. Right? If you do not do that, let me try to do the same thing here. If you do not do that, let's say I do one here and here. Let's say do that. Okay, I divided them to 4 parts, but they're not equal, right? So each part here do not represent 1/4, because 1/4 will look like this, right? This is slightly wider. So the key is when you are showing, graphically showing rectangles, it's very important that you divide them to equal parts based on the denominator, right? So if the denominator says 4, you divide them to 4 equal parts. Okay, I'm going to draw another fraction. Let's say 3/4, right? Using this rectangle over here. Okay, I'll draw the lines first. First, I divide them again to 4 equal parts. Okay, and now, as we said earlier, when you want the focus, right? The focus, you have to look at the numerator. So the numerator is 3, right? 4 here represents the whole. How many pieces we are dividing the whole into? We have divided them to 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces, right? So to show the fraction 3/4, we have to look at the focus. The focus, if you look at the numerator, is 3, right? So we shade 3 out of the 4 pieces. 1, 2, and 3. So this is how we graphically show the fraction 3/4. Let's look at both fractions, 1/4 and 3/4, right? We can see that the fraction 3/4 has got a larger shaded area than 1/4, right? That means the fraction 3/4 is larger than the fraction 1/4. Why do we say that, right? The reason is if you look at the fraction 3/4, you can see that it's closer to a whole compared to the fraction 1/4, right? You only need a little bit more here to get a whole, right? Whereas for the fraction 1/4, you have to fill up a lot more to get a whole. So the fraction 3/4 is closer to a whole than the fraction 1/4, right? We don't have to draw each time to determine whether which fraction is larger, right? All we have to do, we have 1/4 and 3/4. It's very simple. All we have to do to find out which fraction is larger is just look at the numerator. The condition is the denominator must be the same, right? So for this rule, if the denominator is the same, all you have to do is look at the numerator. whichever fraction has got the larger numerator value is the larger fraction. In this case, the denominator is the same, 4 for each, and the numerator here is 3 compared to 1, right? So 3 over 4 is larger than 1 over 4. Okay, so that's the basic rules about fractions. Next, let's try a few sample problems. Okay, sample problem 1. Okay, this is an easy one. The denominator is 8, the numerator is 5. Write the fraction. Okay, so remember ND, right? Oops. ND and D, right? So numerator is 5 and the denominator is 8, right? So this is the answer. Okay, let's look at sample problem 2. It says draw a shape and shade 4 over 7 of it. You shouldn't rush and draw a rectangle. I'd rather draw a rectangle rather than a circle. As mentioned earlier, it's easy to represent graphically represent a fraction using a rectangle, but I wouldn't just draw any rectangle. Let's say, okay, let's say if we just go and draw a rectangle like this. Okay, so let's count the what are the number of squares in this circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's 8 squares on the, along the length of the rectangle. But to divide that 8 squares to 7 equal pieces is going to be tough, right? So I would rather draw a rectangle where the length is a multiple of 7. Okay, let's try that again. So first we'll just mark 14 squares. Okay, that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14. Oops. Side 14. Okay, now I draw my rectangle. So 14 is there. Okay, all right. Right, so so I can easily now divide this to 7 equal pieces. That's number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, and 7. Okay, so that's 7 equal pieces. All right, and then we're going to shade 4 over 7 of it. So I'll change my color to red, and this is piece number 1, piece number 2, piece number 3, and piece number 4. Okay, so this represents 4 over 7. Right, what is now we look at part B. What is a fraction of the remainder? Let's change the color. So this is the remainder. This is 1 piece, 2 piece, and the 3rd piece. So the remainder, that's 1, 2, 3 pieces, right? So the remainder's fraction will be 3 over the total. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 slices. 7, right? Okay, so the fraction of the remainder is 3 over 7, right? This is the answer for B. And the answer for A is this. For 7, we have shaded the part of the rectangle that represents 4 over 7, right? So this is the initial fraction, and this is the remainder, and if you add them up, you will get the whole, which is represented by the number 1. All right? Okay, put the correct symbol, more than or less than, in the boxes below. Right? So we are not going to draw the fractions, graphically show the fractions and see which is larger. Like I told you earlier, all you have to do when the denominator is the same, in this A here, both are 3, all you have to do is look at the numerator, which has the larger value. The fraction with the larger numerator value when the denominators are the same is the larger fraction, right? So let me use red. Okay, 2 over 3 compared to 1 over 3. So the numerator 2 is larger than the numerator 1. That means the fraction 2 over 3 will be larger than the fraction 1 over 3, right? So I put that symbol here, more than. Now let's look at this one below, right? For B, the whole has been divided to 9 pieces, right? We get that information from the denominator. Okay, so to see which is the larger fraction, we look at the numerator. This one has got 8, and this one has got 4. So 8 is larger than 4. That means the fraction 8 over 9 is larger than the fraction 4 over 9, right? So I draw that here. Okay. If you're confused about the symbol, which is more than or less than, there's a little trick. The way I do it is I think of, let's say, a worm, right? You got a little worm and you got a large worm, right? A thick worm, right? So if you are a fish, which worm will you want to eat? You would want to eat, right, the larger worm, right? So if you draw this as a fish, not a very good artist, right? The fish will go for the larger worm, right? So you look at the mouth of the fish, right? It's always opening up to gobble the larger worm, right? So that's, I mean, if you're confused about the symbol, right? Think of this as a mouth of a fish. It wants to gobble up the larger number, or in this case, the larger fraction, right? This mouth here wants to gobble up this 2 or 3, and this is like a mouth here wants to gobble up or eat the larger fraction, 8 over 9. Okay, that's a little tip. This is what I used to do when I get confused over the symbols in school. I think of this fish, right? Going for the larger worm. Okay. Problem 4. This is a word problem. Okay. There were 11 fruits in a basket. There were 4 apples, 5 oranges, and the balance were plums. What is the fraction of the fruits in the basket that are oranges? And part B is what is the fraction of the fruits in the basket that are plums. So we'll do A first. So we know that the total, right? This is not dividing to pieces. This is fractions in terms of looking at the total and the units that make up the total, right? So the total is 11, right? And apple, that's 4. And oranges, that's 5. and the balance are plums. Okay, we don't know. Okay, so as we mentioned very early in our lesson today, fractions are part of a whole or part of the total. So in this case, our total is 11. So we put that as the denominator because the denominator describes the whole, right? Okay, and the whole here is the total 11, right? And question A is a fraction of oranges. So we look at oranges is 5, right? So the focus is on the oranges, and there are 5 oranges, and we put that as the numerator, right? So the answer for A is 5/11. For B, we have to find out how many plums are there first, right? So all you have to do is first add up the apples and oranges. You get 5 plus 4, you get 9. So there are total 11 fruits, and 9 of them are apples and oranges. So the balance, that is 11 minus 9, is 2, right? So this will be the number of plums in the basket. So for question B, again, the denominator will be the total, which is 11. The focus here will be on the numerator, which is 2. And then we put that as the numerator for the plum, right? So 2 plums over a total of 11 fruits in the basket. Okay, I've got some questions here in the form of a worksheet based on today's lesson. I'd like you guys to try them out, and I will provide the answers in my next video. Okay, so here are questions 1 and 2. This is question 3. This is question 4. This is question 5 and 6. This is question 7. And the last one, this is question 8, a word problem. Okay, that's our lesson for today. Hope everyone enjoyed the lesson and will benefit from it. So I'll see y'all in the next video. Okay, bye.